Hey y'all, it's y'all favorite cozy girl, Chi the Reality Queen, and I'm back again with another episode of Robe Chronicles. Tonight we'll be talking about Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, season 6, episode 4, and we're gonna pick up right where we left off. Well, actually, it kind of pushes forward a little bit because it ended with Whitney and Lisa getting into it, but it picks up with Lisa and Angie getting into it. And basically, Lisa is attacking Angie for not owning any of her businesses. She's like, you lie too. You say you own 10 businesses, but you really own one and franchise the rest or whatever, what have you. And Angie's like, I'm tired of you lying. You don't know nothing about my business. You do French fries. I do franchise. So let's all stick to what we know. So Mary's like, wait, what did she say? And Heather goes, she said, you do French fries, I do franchise, and stick to what you know. And Mary's like, oh, that's good. That's good. Like being in like the little gallery watching people argue when you have nothing to do with it really gives you the space to like analyze, like, was that a read? Was that a good diss? Was this that? And I kind of like that for Mary because Mary is a commentary person. Like she really don't be in this stuff. So she has time to just sit and, see which side she likes or what's being said. Um, Angie, yeah, so Angie then talks about how she invested in Lisa's son's line, Fresh Wolf, and agreed to put some of his product on the shelf. But Lisa then is investing or promoting another hair care line. And she's like, you need to be promoting your son's line instead of this random line. She's like, your son has like a C list line that should be in Walmart. And I'm like, it's funny because obviously I don't think the boy has too much to do with this line. However, that is still going to be a low blow. And Angie knew that when she said it. She knew exactly what she was doing when she talked about that boy's line. It was shady. However, it may not have been wrong because what happened to Fresh Wolf? There was a season in which we talked about it and then no one ever heard about it again. It's kind of like Meredith Mark's son, right? He was making clothes, he was a designer, he went to Fashion Week in LA or something, and then we didn't really hear nothing about it. People be doing a lot of stuff on these shows that be only lasting for the episode that we watch it in. But then Meredith goes and also says that what Angie says was low. And Heather hops in saying that she thinks that Lisa was unfairly attacked, like when they were at the trip in the woods, the RV trip. However, Lisa's response to it and what everything is going on has been bad. And so she's been going low. And so Angie returned and went low back. Um, but then Lisa comes and she's like, oh, like I'm being vulnerable and this and that. And everybody's like, girl, you don't show your vulnerability. And I don't know if it's her tone of voice, perhaps the Botox, perhaps the fact that she feels like she has to be so strong. But it is really hard to see Lisa be vulnerable authentically, right? Like she says, I'm being vulnerable, but I don't know where the vulnerability is happening. Um, but then she says she's very sensitive about Angie because even though they fight, she really cares about her. And Angie speaks up and she apologizes to Lisa. But Lisa, in that moment, she doesn't really apologize. She's just kind of like, yeah, I love you. Like, we're good friends. And even when we fight, I still care so much about you and care so deeply. And woo, woo, woo. But again, no apology. And then she starts talking about Heather and how she loves Heather and she sees how she's very honest with her and whoop, whoop, whoop. And this is her being vulnerable. She's crying. There are tears, but also no apologies, which I think is the biggest part about being vulnerable. And I think that's why so many people do not see vulnerability in Lisa because being able to admit that you were wrong and apologize is a very large part of vulnerability. So if you're just like, oh, I'm so sad and I love you and this and that, it's like, okay, yeah, you're vulnerable, but you're not willing to admit fault. And that presents like, that's probably why people don't see you as vulnerable. Um, she then talks about Bronwyn again, and she's saying she loves her and she cares about her, and they have so much relationship, and that's why things feel so heated and whatever. I actually don't remember if Whitney was still sitting there at that table, but there was no apology or mention of Whitney in that moment. um, and then Bronwyn announces, like, I took no pride in talking about your legal issues. It's just, you know, they need to both admit their wrongdoing so they can move forward. Then Lisa decides to make a toast to the girls and like the love she has for them and the care and how she wants to, be their friends and they should all work together and whatever she says. And that was the end of the lunch. They obviously resolved something, something. Then we see, next scene is Meredith in her shop with her with Seth and the daughter. And honestly, I really wonder if, again, I've never been to Utah. I've never seen the inside of that shop besides what they're showing us. I really wonder if she sells stuff. Do people, and again, I know my videos aren't far and wide, but if you have bought anything from Meredith's shop or know anybody who's bought anything from Meredith's shop, please come here and tell us, because these shops be looking packed to the brim like ain't nobody been in there since it's open. So I am curious. Then we see Heather at lunch with Mary, and they're kind of like joking. That's a very interesting one. I mean, I know they didn't really show too much of it. They talk about how Mary talks about how she can taste the hospital taste or something. I don't know. But it's very interesting that that wasn't a focal point. I don't know what happened at that lunch. Obviously, they only cut and splice what they think is important. But Heather and Mary going to lunch, I think, is a pretty big deal because every time they hang out, it's pretty contentious. So the fact that it looked like they were laughing, joking, and having a good time at that lunch, I was like, oh, okay. Looks like they can get along. After she said Gucci don't make size 16, I think it was Gucci, but one of those brands don't make size 16 in relation to how big Heather was. And then she also told Heather she looked inbred. So again, seeing those two people sit down together and actually look like they having a good time was pretty interesting. Um, Whitney is putting up a new pole in her house. She said that the failure of her businesses has her realizing she needs to get back to what and who she was. And to me, I could be wrong, but it sounds like she's saying, hey, I just want to get back to being a stay-at-home mom, stay-at-home wife, someone who is the fine person married to a man who work and make money. Like, I was trying to get too up out of myself, and where I need to be is in the house. And honestly, not everybody's meant to be a working girl. Not everybody's meant to be an entrepreneur. Like, Whitney, it's not for you. Get in that house, get up on that pole, enjoy your husband, do what you gotta do, and call it a day. Because you was trying to do too much. You was trying to get too far outside who you really was. Um, and then Bronwyn meets up with Lisa, and we finally get an apology out of Lisa. Um, she apologized, saying, well, Bronwyn first apologizes for saying the damaging things, and she's really appreciative of the things that Lisa did do to kind of help the relationship between Gwen's parents, Gwen's grandparents, and Gwen. Um, and, you know, they basically walk through everything. They apologize to each other, which is really good. They say that the husbands are off limits, the kids are off limits. And Bronwyn's like, well, I've never talked about your kids, so I don't know what that's about, but yeah. Um, which I think is really good. Bronwyn talks about how she's super rigid and how she feels the way she feels and moves the way she moves because of the way her mom was. And we got a peek of that last episode. Her mama is a little weird. This is not this. This was just me trying to say how little weird she is. Um, and so I can kind of see it. Like when she says, like, oh, this damaged me and I behaved this way because of this and that, you can see it, right? Um, they hug it out, and it seems like they cool. Seems like that's how we end that. Then we see Mary heading off to her church with her cousin. It's getting reopened because it has been renovated by her cousin. Um, it's so funny because I feel like, again, Mary missed some time and then we didn't see her, whatever. And then she came back and no one really talked about the church. No one really talked, like, you as a whole, like, pastor or preacher or something, and you literally just disappeared on that front. Like, so seeing her back in the church is like, okay, girl, like, yes, your church was being renovated, but where have your parishioners gone? Like, what this, like, I know you're trying to make sense of it, but baby, there's more sense that needs to be made. Parishioners don't just leave and come back. Where they go? Have you been doing online church? What's been going on? Robert Senior been gone. Like, where, we actually need a couple more answers than what y'all was given. Um, but then she's talking to her cousin and how tough everything has been and how much closer she's been with her son, with Robert Jr., and that they're super close now. And even with all the problems that she has, like, it actually has made their relationship stronger. um, then she also talks about how marrying her grandfather or step grandfather was also hard on her because it was a decision that everyone was just trying to follow the lead of the grandmother. But I love my grandma. She couldn't tell me to marry her husband to basically run a church, and I'd have been like, okay. Because even if, let's say, that was the case, my dying wish is for you to marry my husband and take over this church. Y'all still had a kid. Because on some level, y'all was relationing outside of what your grandma suggested, right? Because if you were married this person, it would have been business. Like, okay, I'm gonna marry you to keep this and keep that and keep this, but not relationally. Baby, you slept with that man. You had a baby for that man. So whatever else was going on, you liked him a little bit outside of what your grandma said. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird. It's weird to me. I'm sure it's weird to y'all. So whatever. Um, then she talks about how her mom wanted everything. I don't know if her mom wanted to marry the grandfather or what. Like, that situation is still not really adding up. But either way, her mom wanted to take over the church. They didn't let her. They kicked her out of the church. They called the police. And her mom had been estranged ever since. And then her mom was the one that was putting all those articles out about her when she first came on Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, and how she was being groomed by that man and whatever and what have you. So it's very weird, that whole dynamic. I don't really understand it. Maybe it's not for me to understand. But if you are on TV and it is for the public to consume, then baby, I need a better explanation. I need someone to explain to me a little bit more than I think we have been explained. Um, but yeah. So, anyways, her mom has recently passed. And so I think she's kind of coming full circle in everything and all the feelings that she's had with her mom, um, because now that she's passed, obviously. Um, and and it's really weird. Like I said, I need a lot more of Mary's story with, like, explanations that make sense, not just the explanations that Mary gives. Not saying that they aren't somewhat straightforward, but they go straight, but they curve along the way. I need it to be more like, this is what it is. So anyways, we see Heather goes to Angie to do her hair because Angie says that her cosmetology license has lapsed. So she is, trying to do some hair to kind of get, I mean, I don't know how it works, but to kind of like refresh her license. I say refresh, renew. Um, and Angie tells Heather about how Lisa's assistant came in and got the fresh wolf product, Venmoed Angie $600 and was like, here's that $600 for marketing or whatever. And was basically like, and I could pay more to clean your dusty little um, hair salon. And Angie's like, okay, B word, not too much. She's like, you can keep the 600 and pay the people who actually are saying you owe them. And Lisa comes back and is basically like, oh, I'm not the person going on vacations I can't afford. And Heather's like, well, what does she mean by that? No, because what does she mean by that? What allegation is she trying to bring forward? And Angie's like, basically, she's just trying to, what people are saying about her, she's now trying to put on other people. And I'm like, okay, that kind of makes sense. A lot of people like to live by that. So I wouldn't doubt that. But honestly, I feel like all these women with money, I'm not saying they don't have money, but there's always something a little funny around their money, it seems. That's the way it seems. Like there's always something that's just a little funny around their money. Like it's never just, I have a lot of money. It's, I have a lot of money, but that's the way it seems. But maybe I'm losing it. Um, but then, you know, Heather tells Angie, hey, you should stop going low. And Angie's like, oh, I'm not going low. Angie, girl, you be going low. You be going low. Like, I think in her head, she's like, we going tit for tat. But it's like, it's tit for tat 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 tat. Like it's not straight one to one, right? Because Angie's tat is sometimes a little low. I love it though. I love it. I feel like don't come for nobody if you're not ready to get come for. Um, but whatever. But yeah, so then Brittany meets up with Whitney, which is weird in itself. But she's like, oh, when I heard Lisa come for Whitney's business, I realized how bad it must have done, how bad it must have sounded when I did because it's very sensitive. So let me meet up with her or whatever. So they meet up and they're talking and whatever what happened. She says they got off of the wrong foot. She apologizes to Whitney. Whitney, apologized for the Jared comments. Um, Brittany then tells her that her and Whitney are still, her and Jared are still together. And Whitney's like, why? Like, y'all got engaged and you're not engaged. Why are you still together? And she's like, oh, to potentially get engaged again. She's like, he is so good to me. Jared is so good to me. Now, I'm not saying he's not good to her. I don't know how that man treats her. But girl, either you are a fool. No, that's it. That's the only option because I can't, based on the behavior that we have seen and she has experienced, I can't imagine why she's still dealing with that man. Like I can't. My mind is my flabbers have been gasted. I'm like, girl, this man, he might like you or whatever, but it's not like enough because he also likes other people. Yeah. So their whole dynamic is really weird to me, and I don't even understand why she deal with him. Um, Whitney tells her like, "Hey, how's it going with you and your child?" And she's like, "You might need to stop dating so you and your child can kind of like get along." And Brittany's like, "Well, my daughter hasn't really directly asked me to stop dating." And Whitney's like, "Well, did you ask her?" And she's like, "No." Brittany, just say you don't care what your child thinks. I mean, that's more honest than what you're doing in which you're trying to pretend like you care about what your daughter thinks. You care about being with this man or having a man or whatever it is. And that's what you find to be important. And that's okay. But stop trying to be like, oh, but me and my daughter and you don't care. You don't care. Whitney shouldn't be the person that's grabbing you by the shoulders, telling you that you need to care for your child, even though she's an adult. How is Whitney the person telling you you need to care for your adult child? Shouldn't you know that? Shouldn't you know that you should care about the feelings of your adult child? I don't know. Brittany is weird to me, and you know, whatever. If they want to keep her, keep her. But I think she'd be weird, and she do weird stuff. Um, then we see Bronwyn talking to her mom, and honestly, this whole conversation was so cringe to me because Bronwyn's mom, while living in her home, you could tell she don't really care for Bronwyn. Like, I mean, obviously it's her daughter. She loves her. Maybe she just don't like her, which I am able to believe that those things can be separated. But she was just so smug about being mean to her daughter as she was growing up. And I just find that to be so weird. Maybe that's her face. Maybe that's her face. I don't know this lady. This is like the second time we've seen her on camera. Maybe her face is a little smug. That's just kind of how it sits. But she just looked like she was, them little digs, them little comments that she was making, she was loving them. And she could see how they like hurt her child, but it didn't bother her. And that was just so strange to me coming from a mother. It was just very strange. Like she didn't really care. Like even when she said, like she was like, you know, Braun was like, I was really miserable during that pregnancy and you made it miserable. And her mom was like, and I was miserable trying to hide it. But you didn't have to hide it though. You let your religion shame, or you let your religion make you treat your child like she was problematic. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know. This dynamic, I don't like it. And Bronwyn, you could see she wants her mom to love her, to appreciate her, to care for her. And I don't think she gonna get that from that lady. She already old. You really can't change old people. So I don't know what she's looking for. But again, I don't blame her. But I do think she should go to therapy. If she can get her mama in there, get her in there. If she can't, go by herself and fix them issues because it's a lot. Um, but yeah, then Mara and Angie go and they meet to have like a little lunch. Um, and Meredith tells Angie, no, Angie tells Meredith about what Lisa did with the fresh wolf and whatever, what have you. And then she tells her that, you know, you think Lisa is your friend. However, when y'all was having a little whatever, Lisa was telling me to look up all this stuff about you and your family so I have something to bring up when I'm talking to you or talk like, you know, arguing with you and going back and forth. And of course, Meredith doesn't believe it, but I'm like, I don't know why you wouldn't believe it because Lisa has shown that she has said stuff about you in the past that she looked up or got information from someone else or something of that nature. So Meredith doesn't believe it. She thinks her and Lisa are loyal. She thinks that because she and Angie aren't that close that, and I get it. Actually, I am on that side where it's like, I'm not really cool with you. So why would I believe what you're saying? But also, you kind of do know your friend. She kind of has she's shown herself to do those things, you know? And then Meredith's like, well, I hope you know I'm going to go ask Lisa about it directly. And Angie's like, of course, go ask her. That's what she said verbatim. I'm not afraid. And you know what? I appreciate that little interaction because I feel like people be saying stuff to some people and then everybody be acting like it's never going to get said again. Like, oh, I told you this shady thing about your friend and whoop whoop, and you're going to just keep it. But I'm glad Meredith's like, okay, thanks for telling me. I'm going to her and I'm going to tell her what you said. So hopefully it withstands. But then again, who's going to be like, yeah, girl, I told her to go look stuff up about you so she has dirt. That's also not going to happen. So I'm just kind of like, I don't know how that's going to get resolved. But that's basically how the episode ends. And I feel like this Angie Lisa drama is so weird to me because it seemed like they ended off good at that brunch. And I don't know who Lisa spoke to kind of re-rile her up to be mad at Angie again. But I'm just like, this is too much. Although I do think that Lisa is wrong for kind of restarting this fight, I also know that Angie, she does go too low. And maybe Lisa woke up and was like, she really called my son's stuff C-list. And I thought I was cool, but I'm not that cool because what? So that might just be the long and short of it. She might have just thought about how shady it was to talk about her son and decided like all bets are off actually. I changed my mind. Um, but it's just I don't I think that one, Meredith should believe her, but I also think that like, Meredith, she's been kind of laying a little too low for me this season. Like she's not saying enough to have a snowflake. Like I don't know what they would do without her, but I also don't really see her purpose now. Maybe just like for what? Maybe she'll get into it or have some drama a little later or something or have a role, right? Because like I said, even Mary, like her family drama is still something even when she's not in the group drama, right? So I don't know. I don't know. I mean, we're only 4 episodes in, but I'm just not really sure of Meredith's role right now for this season. Brittany as well. Whitney is always going to be that little like shit starter, type thing and kind of just jump in. So, she's kind of solidified that role for herself. She's like Ashley Darby. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I'm really interested to see how this dynamic plays out because right now it seems like everything is cool and just Angie and Lisa have an issue, but I feel like people are going to have to choose sides and it's going to get worse. But we shall see. Tell me what you guys think. How did you enjoy episode 4? What do you think about Bronwyn's mom? Like, do you guys have the same thoughts that I have on the lady, or am I just like hypersensitive and tripping over it? But yeah, please let me know. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share my video. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.